everybody, and welcome to Build Meets World, a special edition of Build Meets World, where in the entire month of June, we're going to take a journey across zero energy construction featuring the Warren County Schools. I want to welcome our guest today, Mike Wilson. Welcome to Build Meets World.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us.
Very excited to have you today. I don't know if you were able to check out my LinkedIn post, but I showed the video of me coming down the slide at Cumberland Trace, and I was a little nervous about that endeavor.
Fun times at Warren County Schools all over.
Exactly. So, but thanks for hosting us there. Definitely want to thank you, all your fellow school board members, everyone at Cumberland Trace for hosting us. So definitely more to come on what we were able to capture when we were there all together. Specifically today, we have Mike as our guest because we want to be able to share with everybody his personal experience of how he was involved in all of the net zero schools across Warren County. So you can see, I always like to kind of show where I went to, right? So we took a journey not too far from Cleveland, Ohio down to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and specifically being able to talk to Mike and some of his colleagues that worked on a variety of schools in Warren County. So here's a little bit, if you guys are wondering exactly where Warren County is. So Mike, tell me a little bit about yourself, your experience, and what Warren County means to you.
So, as you said, I'm a native of Bowling Green in Warren County. Been here my entire life. Bowling Green, Kentucky is the third largest city in Kentucky. We're about an hour north of Nashville, Tennessee, about an hour and 45 minutes south of Louisville, Kentucky, located right on I-65. One of the fastest growing parts of the state, and consequently, we're one of the fastest growing school districts in the state of Kentucky. We're the fourth largest school district in the state of Kentucky with almost 18,000 students, over 2,500 employees. We have 2.1 million square feet under roof. That includes 30 buildings and about 24 schools, 4 high schools, an alternative high school, and an international high school, which is the state of Kentucky's first international high school. And we're a K-12 organization that lives and breathes and promotes the students that are in our district, and it's a joy to be able to serve them in this capacity.
That's great. So a lot of great information specifically about Warren County, and I know it's a personal story for you too. Did you grow up in the area, perhaps?
I did. I'm born and raised here in Bowling Green. I'm a graduate of Warren County Schools. My parents, grandparents graduated to Warren County Schools. I have 3 children. They've all graduated Warren County Schools. And my oldest daughter just completed her first year as a school teacher in Warren County Schools. So we've had a long history personally with the district. I currently serve as the the director of facilities for our district. That includes the custodial function, facility usage function, now the energy manager also for the district. So I serve in a variety of capacities. And I've been in that role for the last 7 years. Prior to that, I was actually on the Board of Education. I served for 12 years on the Warren County Board of Education. 10 of those 12 years were as vice chair or chairperson of the board. So a lot of the history that I have with the board comes as a board member, actually.
That's great. Thanks for sharing all of that. I love the personal story. I love the commitment, and certainly you have a lot of experience about the school board and of course the school community. Talk to me about this energy management or energy role that you now have, being that it's a newer role.
So it's a newer role for me, but actually it's a role that's been in place for almost 20 years now.
Okay.
Warren County Public Schools was the first school district in the state of Kentucky to have an energy manager on staff. And we did that from a standpoint of understanding that, like most school districts across the country, and certainly here in Kentucky, the #1 expenditure that we have is salaries. That's our staff salaries for teachers, school bus drivers, food service workers, custodians. It's the staff that our primary expenditure. The second largest expenditure that we have are our utilities. That's heating, lighting, cooling our buildings. And so any monies that we can save on the energy usage side of things is money we can put back into the general fund that can go to immediately helping students through salaries and through all those other things that we mentioned. So we knew that, one, it was good as a board to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, but there was a real practical sense that the monies that we could save through proper energy management would go right back to the bottom line. So that was the primary driving force behind the energy manager.
So the energy management, obviously having an energy program, not new to the county, not new to you personally. And what about your focus on zero energy school construction? That's not new to you either. Talk to me a little bit about that history and how many years you guys have been focused on having zero energy or zero energy ready schools.
Well, I've spoken to a lot of different audiences about net zero or zero energy schools, and everybody wants to know about that. And I tell them that the net zero or zero energy is kind of the finish line. It's not the starting point. And for us, it certainly wasn't. I don't know that as a board we started out when we hired that energy manager almost 20 years ago that we had net zero in mind. But that was kind of the first domino to fall. We had the energy manager on board. We had in place other measures such as geothermal heating and cooling. Then when the ICF construction was presented to us, that was a huge role and a big step into getting into net zero until finally we decided, hey, this is something that's doable and we want to go ahead and do it again, just being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. But there's a multitude of reasons why net zero makes sense for school districts and other entities, municipalities, and so forth. One of the driving forces behind that was how can we stretch our dollars, but also how can we use the building itself as an educational tool? We think of schools as being places where children go to learn, but the school can actually be part of the learning process itself. And so there's just a multitude of reasons why net zero makes sense for a school district.
Well, and having conversations with you when I was in Bowling Green last week, I know that when it was first approached to you, obviously the energy program, zero energy ready, net zero, however we want to talk about it, it's about saving energy for your school and using that fund somewhere else. What role was insulated concrete forms presented to you as, or how was it received initially as part of that mechanism to get to your energy goals?
So we had, as I mentioned, the energy manager position was brought on board about 19 years ago. Alvaton Elementary School is the nation's first public K-12 ICF constructed school. So I can distinctly recall as a board member when our superintendent and our central office staff brought the idea to the board for an ICF school. We were informed of all the advantages of ICF, new building process to schools over traditional construction. And so we had some questions, and one of the questions that we asked as a board was, well, what other school districts have ICF construction? And the answer was none. We had asked if one of our construction managers could go visit an ICF school, and we were told, well, there aren't any public schools that are built out of this. So that kind of gave us some pause initially. One of the things that you'll hear me say is that Warren County Schools was the first to do this, the first to do that. We like to think of ourselves as forward-thinking, progressive, whatever word you want to use, but we're also not interested in being a guinea pig for anyone. So we were kind of cautious about it initially. But Martin Clark with Nudura did take some of our staff to a private elementary school that was constructed with ICF. And our guys went and kind of kicked the tires, so to speak, on what ICF meant for the school district. Came back with a lot of glowing remarks and positive feedback on that school. So we did vote unanimously to build a school. We had a school that was formerly a high school many years ago, was having converted into an elementary school, and it was just time for that building to basically be torn down and a new school built. So we had a project that was ready for construction, and we had the decision to make. Do we want to go ahead and do the ICF construction, or we want to go the traditional school construction route? And we voted unanimously to take on the new construction style of ICF. A little apprehension, I must say, that I had in my mind personally, because as a board member, when you're spending multiple millions of dollars on a project, you want to make sure that the finished product is something that, one, is good for learning and for instruction for our students, but also, two, these schools are part of our communities. And so we want something that the community can be proud of when they drive by and they look at it, even if they never set foot inside the building. It's something that's a focal point in the community, and we want to make sure that it looks good and is as advertised. So we want to make sure that we didn't build a building that can crumble in a few years. So I'm proud to say that 15 years after the fact, Alvaton Elementary School looks as good as it did on day one. And if I didn't tell you it's a 15-year-old school, you might not even know that.
Yeah, we'll be sharing a variety of videos of these schools throughout Warren County. I love the story. Obviously, Martin Clark with Nadura, a key player in bringing this innovative approach to school construction and just introducing the school board and everyone involved in it. Now, I know I love, you know, the school board involvement, unanimous voting, but I think another part that I learned from you and the other your other colleagues on these projects that we'll have in the subsequent weeks is all about that collaboration and all coming together. And I think that's really where you guys are seeing that the ability for you guys to all work together on every front, right? So it's not about what the architect needs. It's not about, you know, maybe what the energy program needs. It's about how all of these elements come together and work collaboratively. Tell me a bit about that and that approach that you guys had to be so engaged as a unit, as a team with all the other players.
Well, that's a very important point, is that we had, when we voted for this, the understanding was that our architect and our construction team would have to be on board with it, because we were asking them to take a pretty big leap professionally, because they had never, our architects had never designed a school of ICF. Our construction team had never built a school out of it, obviously. So they were taking some, you know, professional risk on how do we go about doing this? Do we want to be a part of it? Our architectural firm is Sherman Carter Barnhart, offices in Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky. And they've been longtime architects for the district, 25 years, give or take. And so we were not only saying to, you know, when we said, yes, we want to do this, we were actually telling our architect, you're going to have to change the way that you do some of your design. And that's something that they had to make a business decision on whether they wanted to do or not. And they were up to the task. I'm sure there was a lot of work, you know, heavy lifting on their side to design this new building. And then Alliance Corporation has been a longtime partner in construction, and all the teams that we've partnered with had to kind of take a step back and look at the way they did things. And they didn't know time frames, they didn't know construction style. All these were variables that they're just unknowns. And so we were asking them, hey, this is something that we want to do, and we want you to step up to the plate and help us get it done. And to their credit, each and every one of those parts of the puzzle came together to give us, you know, initially Alton Elementary, but subsequent schools since then.
Yes, I love hearing about this 15-year journey, this 15-year relationship that's ongoing with Sherman Carter Barnhart, with Alliance, and of course with CMTA. Talk to me about, you know, what your energy program looked like and how are you meeting those goals? Now, we will have CMTA on next week, next Friday, and they'll give us some of those specifics. But talk to me about where you saw the reason to go this way, how ICF was a benefit, and are you achieving those goals, you know, every single year in these past 15 years and with the new schools too?
Right. So from our energy management standpoint, we need a good, strong building envelope, one that's going to be safe and secure foremost, but also it's going to be energy efficient. And with the insulated concrete forms, you know, by definition, they're insulated. So that helps us, but also the concrete itself will absorb the heat. And one of the things we found out is, like in the wintertime, even though here locally in Bowling Green, I tell people I'm far enough north where I get some snow, but far enough south where I don't get a whole lot. But we can have bitterly cold temperatures in the negative numbers sometimes. And in the summer times, we can get up 100 degrees or more. So we wanted a school that will be able to help us to meet those energy goals. So ICF helps us do that. And one thing that I always hear questions from people that are considering this, especially school districts, is, well, what's the comfort level in this? And I always tell them that you can be energy efficient and not have any heat in the winter and not have any air in the summer, and be very energy efficient. But again, our number one goal is how can we best educate students. And so if a student is uncomfortable in their building environment, they're not going to be able to learn, they're not going to be able to focus. And so not just for our students, but also our staff, because they have to be able, that's their office. Their classroom is their office. And so if they're always, if they're hot in the summer, if they're cold in the winter, if humidity levels are not where they need to be, then we're not going to have a good learning environment, not going to have a good working environment. And we absolutely do in our schools that have ICF construction. And so we're able to meet our energy goals, but also to give a good, I would say a warm, an environment that has warmth to it, where you want to go to school, you want to go to work, and be in an environment where you can learn. And so ICF helps us meet all those initiatives.
And I love hearing you talk about not only meeting your energy goals, but having money that you might, that you would have had to spend on those types of heating and cooling costs and being able to implement those back into salaries as well as educational programs. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So since the board initially brought on the energy manager role, we started being very energy conscious. To date, our district has in cost avoidance close to $18 million, and that's over a 19-year period. So when you think about on average about $1 million a year that we've avoided in energy costs, and it goes right back into the general fund. So those are real dollars that we haven't had to go to our community, to our public, to our taxpayers and say, we need those dollars. And that's not money that's been, I don't want to say wasted, but not been a good consumer of, a good steward of, that we can still, as we said, the buildings are very comfortable being, but at the same time, we're able to put those dollars that we would otherwise spend on utilities and put them back into the general fund that we could use for computers and textbooks and teacher salaries and things of that nature. So it's really a win-win when you look at it from that standpoint.
Well, and I love the community engagement. You're talking about these schools not only for a learning environment for the students that use them, but they're also part of the community. They can serve as shelters as well because of the durability of the construction. Talk to me about how that's impacted or how the community has embraced zero energy and ICF construction in your county.
Well, that was initially one of the things that, to be very honest, one of the first things that caught my attention was the fact that the ICF constructed buildings could withstand winds of up to 250 miles an hour. And in everything that we do in Warren County schools, school safety is the number one factor. It's first and foremost in our mind. And so again, where we live, we get tornadoes, we get strong winds, straight line winds, severe thunderstorms. And those buildings being as safe as anything that's constructed in our area made me feel good as a father to have 3 kids in these buildings, but also now as a father of a teacher. My wife is a teacher's aide in one of our schools. My daughter's a school teacher. I have a sister that's a school bus driver. My youngest daughter is in school. She hopes to be a school teacher someday. So it gives me a good feeling to know our schools are safe for our students and our staff both. And we recently, this past December, unfortunately had a series of tornadoes that hit here in Bowling Green, Warren County, across the state of Kentucky. Bowling Green being one of the areas that was hardest hit. We had 18 deaths in Warren County, and quite honestly, there were 11 of those deaths in 2 houses that was less than a quarter of a mile behind one of our ICF schools. And it just goes to show that the strength, one, it goes to show that we can have severe weather in our area. 2, it goes to show the strength and integrity of the building that withstands, there was no damage to that building at all. And so our ICF schools are sprinkled throughout our county, and none of our buildings withstood any damage. But when you're looking at the loss of life, and 4 of those were students in our schools, it's just heartbreaking to think about, how close those people were to schools that were ICF constructed that, possibly, who knows, if they were in those buildings, the outcome might be different. So it's the safety factor that was first and foremost in my mind. Everything else after that, the energy savings and the speed of construction and other things like that, were just the icing on the cake.
Well, and I love the idea of education, obviously using the building as education too. So when we have the variety of other project members on in the remaining Fridays, they're going to talk to us about different dashboards that you guys can use. And I know you've utilized those with the kids, different evidence about that energy savings. And of course, even more in terms of getting that zero energy ready criteria. So we have lots more to come on this. But if you had some final words in terms of other school board members or other people in different communities, if they were hesitant about moving towards ICF construction to help them get to those zero energy ready goals, what would you want to share with them as some final thoughts with us?
I would certainly share with them that they are more than welcome to come to Warren County, to Warren County Public Schools, and just kick the tires in our school, so to speak. We have every school that we build, with the exception of one, has been built out of ICF construction, and that one was, we were in a growth period. We've always been in a growth period, but there was one point where we had to get a school constructed. The Kentucky Department of Education said, here's one that's already been approved, and it wasn't, it was traditional construction, so we went that route for that one school. but since then, every school that we built over the last 15 years has been with ICF. Really, our school board kind of took that leap of faith to build that first school that way, but there's really, in my mind, no reason not to. As a matter of fact, I would suggest, and this is just Mike Wilson personally, but I would think that any publicly funded building, whether it's a jail, a schoolhouse, a library, a courthouse, should be built ICF construction. I think it makes sense in a multitude of ways, and I don't know of any other construction style that would help you meet the goals of, again, speed of construction, safety factor, energy factor, just every way that you look at it. So I understand certainly where a school board or a school superintendent might have some apprehension, but just come and look at what we're doing. I neglected to mention that we are the most energy efficient school district in the state of Kentucky with over 170 school districts. And so ICF has played a large role in helping us get to that point. And so I would just encourage anyone, just come to see us and we'll be glad to show you around, and the proof is in the pudding, so to speak.
Well, and I thank you for that. I thank you for opening up your doors, sharing your story, just as you wanted to do when you went to visit that school in Arkansas. So we can't thank you enough for, you know, working very closely with Nadura. Obviously, a big shout out to Martin Clark and the rest of the team that you guys are all going to get a chance to meet here in the next couple of weeks. And I think that's the key part of it. I captured a little bit of information that I wanted to share with everybody as we come to a close here today, as it relates to just that the conversation centered around working together and collectively. This is actually from the Department of Energy, right? And they are talking about zero energy schools. They have accelerator partner across the US. There's lots of information you can find online. I know you can Google Mike Wilson and see him on a couple newscasts as well, talking about not only, you know, the great work done in Warren County, but once again, that life safety aspect when there is, you know, tornadic activity coming through, and that ability to have a storm shelter to provide that safety. And once again, I thought this was pretty interesting. In the article from the Department of Energy, you can see here it kind of describes it in the purple, if you guys can read it real quickly there. But the key part in there is it's about, you're going to face challenges, and it's going to be ideal to have the cooperation of everyone involved. And you're going to see with Mike Wilson and the rest of the team throughout the rest couple of weeks and a couple other videos we have getting ready for you, that's a key part of it, that collaboration, working together. And I'll tell you what, sitting there talking to these guys aren't just people that work together on a project. You can tell that it's somewhat of a family and a friendship that has been able to grow throughout the years. So
I would have, Marcy, one thing, seeing that quote there,
yeah.
It says, while there are certain challenges, I don't know that there are any more challenges going the ICF construction route than we did standard construction.
True. True.
It was just a different way of doing things. Now, initially that might have been a challenge, but, and I'm sure, you know, some of the folks in the construction side of things could attest to, when we started 15 years ago, architects didn't know how to design this way. We didn't have builders, we didn't have anyone in this area to, you know, construct the ICF, but now there are, you know, numerous across the nation. So if there were challenges initially, I would say the challenges are very minimal today. And we kind of think of that, you know, 15 years into this, it's just the way we build schools. We don't even really bat an eye at it. So, but I can still understand there's some apprehension in some districts that if they haven't done this before, that it might be kind of the unknown for them.
Well, and I appreciate you giving that feedback, because I certainly appreciate that. 15 years ago, right, when you guys walked uphill both ways to the school construction, right? But this article is actually from 2017, so perfect point, right? Things have changed, things have come a long way in terms of how we communicate and how we collaborate on projects. And once again, this is just that snapshot of some of the players, the key players that came together that we were able to get together with. So next week we have representatives from CMTA. The following week we'll have Sherman Carter Barnhart, and the last week in June we'll have Alliance. So great guest contributors. We'll also have a roundtable video coming out full of testimonials from people like Mike Wilson with that personal story. And then we also are wanting to highlight that we're looking at doing an industry event in Bowling Green, Kentucky in November. So stay tuned to all that great information we'll be able to provide you for the whole idea of zero energy school construction, and with a focus on ICF. So there is my email. If anyone has any additional questions, comments, or wants to reach out to me, feel free to do that. And most importantly, Mike Wilson, thank you for spending last week with us. Thank you for taking us around the school, and of course for joining us this Friday afternoon.
Absolutely, glad to do it.
Thanks so much. Look forward to working with you more in the future, and I hope everyone has a safe weekend. Take care.